Shabbat Shalom, everyone. To the brave few who made it out in the snow, I'm so glad you're here. And I want to start by taking a little poll. I always say this, but I'm not going to judge you if you put your hand up or down. So first, I just want to know, is there anybody in here who's ever had a hard time respecting your parent? Never. Okay, great. And now I want you to think about, your neighborhood. I want you to think about, whatever signs people might have up in front of their house. And then I want to ask, have you ever had a hard time loving your neighbor? Great. Thank you for being honest. Okay. So these are the two things I want to talk about today. I want to speak about the phenomena, say, that it is difficult at times to honor our parents, and it is difficult at times to love our neighbors, and yet those are the two things that the Torah commands. Interestingly, the Torah doesn't command us to love our parents, and it doesn't command us to respect our neighbor. And I want to think about these two things separately and how they interrelate and have something to teach us together. So I'll start by talking about the commandment to honor your parents, which comes as the fifth of the 10 commandments that we heard this morning, kivud av ve'em in the Hebrew. And loving your parents, not the commandment, okay? Rabbi Joseph Telushkin pointed out that it is actually surprising. It might be surprising that we're not taught to love our parents, but rather to honor them. And it's not that the Torah is unwilling to command love. The Torah does command love in the case of neighbors and strangers, but not in the case of parents. And what first I want you to be thinking of is how loving parents, not always easy, also. I'm not going to say that respecting them is hard and loving them is easy. But it's hard to command love in intimate relationships. Relationships between parents and children are the most intimate relationships that we have. In a sense, we can know each other too well for it to be fair to say, you have to love this person. Many of us might feel lucky that we do love our parents, but we also know there are so many fraught parent-child relationships, and the Torah is being very careful to direct itself toward respect instead of love. One piece of this, I think it's just funny. So the first time someone pointed this out to me, it was my husband, Freddie, and you'll tell him later that I told this story, but basically he said when he was a kid and they would go on family hikes, his dad would insist on wearing lederhosen on the hike. You know what those are? Like the cute little Swiss jumper. Very cute. And he was mortified. He's like, I have to respect this man. So it's funny, but it also illustrates the point that sometimes when we know each other so well, we can also embarrass each other really deeply. And when we're invited to respect our parents, it is circumventing the dynamics that we might feel about our ability to love them when we really, really know them. And one of the claims I want to make this morning is that love and knowing are really interconnected. When we love people, it's something that grows out of curiosity about them. We actually want often to know the people who we love really deeply. And that's why we opt in to relationships with people who we're drawn to, and we want to know them. And what's dynamic about parents is that we don't get to choose them. And so again, the Torah's wisdom, we can't really command you to love the people who you don't choose, who you are going to know so well. And Rabbi Joseph Telushkin goes on to teach not just that the Torah is being very pointed in not commanding love, but that the Torah specifically commands respect, because as much as we might love our parents or go through periods of estrangement with them, the Torah is offering us a guideline for behavior during those times when we might not feel as loving towards our parents. That even in those moments, when parents who have not been fair to us, or even when we've seen them do something embarrassing or wrong, we're still obligated to try to honor them. And the mitzvah, the commandment that our sages go on to explain as honor, is actually pretty simple. I mean, the Lederhosen story is funny, but it isn't actually meant to be that kind of respect where we really accept a person for exactly as they are. Respect in the rabbi's thinking and honoring is about materially providing for them, honoring them by feeding them, giving them drink, making sure that they're dressed, and bringing them in and out physically, caring for them, which is something that I've seen so many people do for their parents, regardless of how they actually feel about them. This is something that we do fulfill, and it is actually really pointed that the Torah wants us to have this kind of relationship with our parent because it can't really control the love piece. So now I want to flip it and say, well, then how does the Torah go ahead and command loving our neighbor? So I want to argue that in the case of neighbors, it is easier to respect them. By respect, I mean keep them at a distance. Oh, hi, goodbye. No, I don't feel like talking today. You know how to do it. You either park in the garage or you get out of the car and you don't make eye contact. That's how you respect each other. But it's the mutual respect of frigidity, of coldness, of distance. And the Torah invites us to love our neighbor, which is hard. Because you don't always want to know more about your neighbor, especially when on their yard or on social media, they put out a lot of stuff or they project a lot of things that you think you disagree with. So this is where I want to offer something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is that the commandment to love, in the case of our neighbors, in the case of the stranger, is a command to get curious about one another. Getting curious does not have to mean you agree. In fact, you may disagree. But a wise friend said to me just the other day, you know what? When we talk about making peace, we don't make peace with friends. We make peace with enemies. We make peace with the people who we don't understand, who we don't like. And so this commandment to love our neighbor is a Torah invitation to actually getting curious about one another. It doesn't mean that you have to agree. It doesn't mean that you have to even come to understanding. But what I've noticed is that when I walk through the world trying to really know people, it is much harder to hate them. And I think sometimes we just enjoy hating each other. I do. Helen's laughing. I think that it is, in a sense, really morally compromising to love people. Because you know what? We are different. We disagree with each other. We have ideas that are ugly or that feel hateful or hurtful. But at the end of the day, God actually wants us to love each other. And the work that happens when we do get curious about one another, when we're open enough to really see each other, the work in between, that's what we're supposed to be focusing on. How does it push me to know you? What new thing have I learned about myself in knowing you? And so that is where I want us to be holding today. To leave here not saying that I told you that, everyone's good and we're all perfect. We're actually all really difficult, curmudgeon-y, frustrated people in a challenging world with a lot of different opinions about the world. But if we can't be curious about one another, if we can't have the strength of ourselves to be curious about our neighbor, to hope that they're curious about us, then growth will elude us. And growth is one of our deepest commandments, to learn in this world, to live, and to grow. So I hope you can hear that in the commandment to respect your parents and to love your neighbors, that the seed of love is curiosity. And we can all cultivate that in the days ahead. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.